Thank you for inviting me to participate in your district convention. It is always an honor to share my optimism with others. I'm so excited to see old friends, and I'm always ready to make new friends. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to all the first timers who have found their way here today. You are our future. Thank you also to all the old timers, some not so old, for keeping the Pacific Southwest District strong. You might think I'm going to say that you're our history and our institutional memory, but no, you are our future too. We can't rest on what we have done. We must all work together today and tomorrow to bring out the best in youth and in our communities. We must work even harder to bring out the best in ourselves. Do you know what our best is? Optimism. Optimism is what has brought us together today, and it's what makes our world a brighter, better place. You've probably seen the memes on Facebook that seek to describe our current state of affairs. If 2020 was a piñata, it would be a hornet's nest. If 2020 was a slide, it would be an oversized cheese grater. If 2020 was a drink, it would be colonoscopy prep. We might chuckle a little when we see these jokes, but we are optimists. We know in our heads and in our hearts that 2020 is an obstacle course with twists and turns and hurdles that we will conquer. We will emerge victorious. We are optimists. So now, let me tell you a story. Every story starts with a title, and mine is Where Flowers Bloom, So Do People. I'm going to confess, the title was a little bit of a mix-up from a quote by Lady Bird Johnson. She said, "Where flowers bloom, so does hope." One of her accomplishments as First Lady was to sprinkle wildflowers along our nation's highways. For more than 30 years, her program brought beauty and hope to travelers and commuters and sparked environmental protection. Yes, that's right. All the way back in 1960s, we were thinking about the environment. But what does that have to do with 2020, you ask? Now this is where the story comes in. On March 13, 2020, I came home from a meeting with a client, just as the state of Washington symbolically closed its doors. Businesses were unceremoniously closed, the term essential workers was born, and citizens, curiously enough, obeyed the mandates to just stay home. Yes, in case you're wondering, that was Friday the 13th. Around the country and around the world, similar closures were happening and continued happening in the weeks to come. By April 1, the United States was in quarantine, and most everyone was staying home and safe from the coronavirus. Every day, I would take my dog for a nice long walk. He loved this new normal, and he was always ready to go. My walk would take me around the neighborhood, through a nature preserve, up and down hills, by abandoned schools and churches, among other places. One day, walking by a church, I saw this sign. Want some good news? Watch our garden grow. I looked over at the garden and saw this. Dirt. I chuckled to myself, thinking, it's going to take some time before we see any good news here, and I continued walking. It was probably 2 weeks later that I noticed the brown dirt was showing a little green. And a few weeks later, the soil looked healthier and the plants were beginning to dance in the sun. In another week, the people started to show themselves. Social distancing, of course. They would pull weeds and water the plants. The garden was growing. There was indeed good news. And soon the little ones were taking part in this educational opportunity. Good news! And by June, there was a lush garden. And last month, I saw they were sharing the vegetables grown in the garden. Yes, this was good news. But back in April, we didn't know what to expect. I don't think anyone expected the 6 months that we have endured. We didn't know what it would be like to confine ourselves to our homes, away from extended family and friends. We didn't know what it would be like to forsake hugs. We didn't know what it would mean to reopen our economy in phases. And there is so much we didn't know and still don't know. But 6 months, nearly 7 months in, there are a few things I do know. Let me share them with you. What have I learned from the pandemic? Well, first, I learned that staying home is not a bad thing. I learned the internet is our friend, and shared experiences make us stronger. So let's take a little closer look. Staying home is not a bad thing. For many, staying at home has allowed couples to rekindle their relationships. They've had the opportunity to remember why they became involved with their significant other. Working parents with children have connected with their children at organized family dinners and through homeschooling projects and family game time. These are things they may not have had the time to do before as they rush from soccer practice to gymnastics in between school and work. Families are important. People have looked around their houses and they've completed projects that they promised to do months or even years ago. I've seen bath and kitchen remodels on Facebook and new patios and decks installed. Even we painted our house. We've found more time to exercise. I've heard it said that all of the dogs around the country have begun to hide when their owner wants to take them for the third or fourth walk of the day. We've also learned not to feel guilty when we say we're going to watch Netflix and chill. I mean, really, we're in quarantine. What else was there to do? Drink wine? Well, I'm going to tell you what else there was to do. Fire up the internet. Yes, the internet is our friend. Of course, I knew this already. I can spend hours and hours and hours on the internet because almost everything that can be done in person can be done on the internet. We can watch TV, read a book or a magazine or a newspaper. We can listen to music. We can go shopping. The internet is truly a marketplace of ideas and a marketplace of products. If we open our minds and our hearts and are careful not to open our pocketbooks too wide, the internet provides a plethora of experiences, especially helpful to those confined to home. And have I talked about social media? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat allow us to make friends and keep friends. Think about it. Facebook was truly our first exposure to social distancing before social or physical distancing was a thing. We've discovered the brilliance of Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. These platforms allow us to connect face to face with people across the globe, just as we are doing today. Our shared experiences make us stronger. It didn't take long for optimists to figure that out. I think it was in April when I attended my first Zoom meeting with other Optimist Club members from the East Coast, Michigan, and Illinois. I think there was even someone there from Uganda. It was kind of cool. Optimists are resilient. They find a way to share their hope and their ideas. As the groups of Optimist Club members have come together online across the continent and around the world, we've seen new Optimist Clubs started in Nepal and Lebanon and in other countries. We've seen Optimist Club programs redesigned to fit a virtual setting. We've heard of new ideas to keep our communities and the youth engaged. Now, how have I heard, or how have we heard of these things? Through the magic of the internet and its social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. We've shared our experiences. We've shared ideas. We've shared hope. We've shared optimism. Although Optimist Club meetings may be postponed, love, respect, hope, and optimism are not. We optimist on. Here are just a few things that I saw during the lockdown. I saw hearts applied to windows to say thank you to our frontline essential workers. I saw Optimist clubs that made a game of this. Children would count the number of hearts that they saw, just like a scavenger hunt. There was also bear hunts, where teddy bears would be placed in windows for the kiddos to see, and sometimes they'd take a picture of them and send them in for a prize. I saw that optimists care. As they shared stories about their clubs on social media platforms, they also spread messages of safety during COVID-19. Wear a mask, wash your hands, stay at home. I saw Optimist International's most beloved program, at least I believe it's the most beloved program, the World Oratorical Championships, take a virtual leap forward. Now, back in 2016, the program was redesigned as a virtual contest, where at the international level, our district winners would compete online with students from countries other than the US, Canada, and the Caribbean. It didn't stick. The districts that were close to the Midwest said, we're going to send our people in person, and Optimist International office discovered what fun it was to have the children there competing and how fun it was to put on an event. So this year was going to be the first year that everyone was to go to St. Louis for the contest. Enter COVID-19, and it went back to being what had been truly imagined in the first place, with the districts holding their district level competitions online and the winners going forward to the global event. We proved to ourselves and to our clubs that it could be done. The World Oratorical Championships could be completely virtual. Not only could it be done, it could be done well. I saw Optimist International host an online virtual convention. For the better part of 2 days, we attended business sessions. We participated in training and held social get-togethers. It wasn't the same as gathering in person, but it was good, and it was a lot cheaper than flying somewhere. The virtual convention gave hope to new, innovative programs that might continue to grow in our new online communities. I also saw the beginning of what we now call the Optimist Coffee Cafe. Remember I said it was April when I attended my first Zoom meeting with Optimist Club members from the East Coast? That grew into the Optimist Coffee Cafe, and you can probably at least once a week, log in to share ideas with fellow club members. All you need to do is go to Optimist Coffee Cafe on the Optimist International website, that's optimist.org, and to see the calendar and to register. On September 21, our very own Kathy Hicks will be hosting the West Coast Coffee Cafe. I hope you join us. And then finally, I saw one of President Adrian Elcock's new initiatives organized into a virtual setting. President Adrian asked clubs to focus on the arts this year. And we're going to hear from Jim Carroll and Liana Balabas this afternoon about the Gardena Optimist Club's art contest. But the one that caught my attention on Facebook was organized by the Optimist Club of Oakville, Ontario. They took the student artwork they received and created wonderful videos that you can see on their Facebook page. What a great way to incorporate technology into an Optimist Club program. I think we're going to see that we can do a lot more of that in the future. The future of optimism may lie in technology. It's the fastest and easiest way to share optimism. In fact, when I scrolled through Facebook today, I saw a longtime friend from Illinois, someone who declared he would never have a Facebook profile, suggested to me as someone I might know. When we embrace technology, we share optimism. But other things were going on during our quarantine period. Just in case a pandemic wasn't enough to test our optimism, protests broke out in major cities around the U.S. in response to police brutality in the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Because of this tragedy, the Black Lives Matter movement gained much needed significant awareness. The NFL and NBA took up the cause and made statements to acknowledge that things are not equal. Unconscious and perhaps even conscious bias takes place freely in our society. And Optimist International wants to do something about that. Because we are optimists, we know there is a better way. Optimist International has announced OptiForum, the first in what may be a series. It will be a panel discussion about recognizing and managing unconscious bias. The first will take place on September 17th online, and it's free to Optimist Club members. The OptiForum is an example of leading with hope and positive vision because we are optimists. But wait, there's more. 2020 has brought even more obstacles to test our faith. Wildfires are ravaging California and Oregon and threatening Washington as well. But we continue to have hope because we are optimists. And just as a matter of timing, yesterday was the anniversary of 9/11. I saw many memorials on Facebook remembering the Twin Towers and those who perished. One stood out to me. It was from a friend in Oregon, Brian Shaw, whose city was facing evacuation due to the fires. He still wanted to comment on the significance of the day and offer the hope he has learned that tragedy can bring. He said, "On 9/11, I was attending an Optimist Club meeting that morning, an Optimist meeting. This event brought us together then. The fires are bringing us together today. Why does it take disasters to show our human spirit? Sadly, I was talking to a friend months ago about what it will take to pull us together as a nation again. Well, I got to watch firsthand in the last couple of days, at least locally, the faith, the generosity, the human spirit. I am still an optimist." Remember those flowers that I mentioned back at the beginning of this presentation? Wildflowers that would grow along the side of the highway. Sprouts that willfully push themselves forward from sand, from the desert, from rocks, from the cracked earth, even well-tended gardens and not so well-tended flower beds. Like optimists, those flowers are resilient. They inspire hope. They demonstrate strength. They provide beauty. Flowers find a way to bloom wherever they are planted. And I truly believe wherever flowers bloom, so do people. The rest is up to you, and I know you are up to the challenge. You are resilient, you are innovative, you are creative, and you are caring. You are optimists. I have one last slide and one last request. No, let's make that a plea for every person. Choose optimism and start blooming today.